Ed and Rose's love story that millions followed from the 90-Day Fiance has reached its demise. Rose says she's done with Ed after several frustrations and one big lie. While most believe in love, others are rooting for Rose, calling her smart to split up with Ed. Welcome back in today's video, where we break down the Rose and Ed love affair. So, with this sensational soap opera and love drama, you'll want to share this video, give it a like, and subscribe. Allow us to set the scene of the TLC network's 90-Day Fiancé in case you've been left out of the loop. This is a reality TV program that follows couples with an existing online relationship who have not begun the process of securing visas known as the K-1 visa. This non-immigrant visa is also internationally known as a fiancé visa. In this reality TV program, one partner visits their partner's foreign country, and they have 90 days to test the waters and make sure they truly want to spend a lifetime together. Ed, otherwise known as Big Ed Brown, and Rosemary Vega, or Rose, caught the attention of millions of viewers with their unorthodox intimacy, as their age gap was massive, and Rose being a 23-year-old single mother. Rose refused to give details about her baby's father. However, 54-year-old Big Ed was married for 2 years, and that marriage ended due to his promiscuity. Yet he continues to have a close relationship with his 29-year-old daughter, Tiffany. For nearly a decade, Big Ed had given up on love until he met Rose. After becoming very close chatting online multiple times daily for 3 months, Ed thought she was the woman to engage in another marital union. Criticism of the age gap. Ed is a 54-year-old man who had a previous marriage and now has a 29-year-old daughter. Rose is 24 and has a 5-year-old son named Prince. Although they are both adults and both had the legal capacity to get married, the 30-year gap surely raised eyebrows. And if they actually were to get married, Ed's 29-year-old daughter would have a stepmother who's 6 years younger than her. This arrangement is distasteful for most people. Ed said that age was never an issue between them and confessed that initially he was largely attracted to her because of the attention and care she invested in him. He explained that she admired him and genuinely wanted to talk to him. In an interview with E.T., Ed stated that he did originally tell Rose that he was old enough to be her father, but age was never an obstacle, regardless of so many others who begged to differ. He went on explaining that with an age factor and their distance, him being in San Diego and her residing in the Philippines, he didn't think their love would blossom to a serious relationship. But that's actually what transpired. The several small obstacles. Like any relationship, it's not all peaches and cream. Rose and Ed had some hilariously petty hurdles that rooted from the fault of them both. For instance, once Ed took the 14-hour flight from Cali to Manila, Rose was late because she decided to fill her belly at McDonald's. So the initial meeting was not off to a romantic dreamlike start. After they met at the airport, Rose was shocked that her distant pen pal lover was not as tall as he initially said. Big Ed might be big, but he was surely not 5'2" like he told her, and he's actually 4'11". This might not seem very significant for Westerners, but for those of us who have female friends and family from East Asia, you'll surely know the majority of Asian women prefer height over looks, and rarely date men who are shorter than them. So this simple lie and his height weighed heavy on Rose's conscience. But doubts were not the only weight of Rose's conscience. Big Ed also had some hefty trust concerns, and he wanted answers. Ed was curious to know the full history of Rose, and no matter how much he questioned, Rose wouldn't divulge information of her past romantic relationships, including details of her baby's father. It got to the point where Big Ed really began to distrust her, so he offered her a compromise. He figured that he would stop asking about her past if she would agree to getting tested for STDs. Unwilling to compromise and insulted that Big Ed came up with the idea, Rose began to view Big Ed as a villain, and viewers began to antagonize him. In his modest confessional, Ed explained that he wanted to know if he could trust her, and that she's not someone that sleeps around. Rose didn't see eye to eye with Ed at all, and said, quote, "He thinks of me as a dirty woman. He thinks of me as nothing but an easy girl. He doesn't think of me as his girlfriend, and why should he ask me to do something like that?" End quote. Eventually, Rose opened up about Prince's father, saying that he's married and has a new child with his new wife. After 4 years of being separated with her son's father, she was with 2 other men. Finally, when Rose disclosed her history, Big Ed started to trust her. But compromising was definitely not the strong suit of Rose, and could definitely be construed as the main reason of the demise of the relationship. When Big Ed arrived in the Philippines and Rose asked him to stay with her parents' house, Ed obliged. The 54-year-old American experienced sleeping on the floor and showering in cold water with Rose's father and living in conditions that Ed never experienced in his life. His compliance and compromise seemed like a big deal to many, but when it was Rose's turn to comply with Ed's desires, she was reluctant. During one of the nights, they were lounging in their luxurious hotel. Big Ed was inclined to give her a leg and foot massage. He noticed that her legs were quite hairy and later asked her to shave them. And he was concerned about her breath and asked her to use more mouthwash, which she finally complied to both requests, with much fussing and additional terms and excuses like, quote, "My breath is bad because I have an ulcer," end quote. And if she shaved her legs, Ed would have to shave his beard. The big lie. Rose said she'd always wanted a large family, even though she was a 23-year-old single mother living with her parents. Rose stated that she wanted to have at least 2 more children and expressed her dreams to Big Ed before he arrived in the Philippines. However, Big Ed figured that once they truly fell in love, this wouldn't be an obstacle, so he refrained from admitting that he had already undergone vasectomy procedures. After all, their time together chatting online and roaming around the Philippines when Rose found out the truth about his vasectomy. She had finally had enough and called it quits. So what do you think of this unusual love affair? Whose side are you on? And who do you think was mostly at fault? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, be sure to leave a like, share, subscribe, and ring the notification bell for more videos just like this one.